Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The control room buzzed with excitement. Monitors blinked with streams of data, and the hum of advanced machinery filled the air. At the heart of it all, Dr. Evelyn Monroe stood at the console, hands poised above the controls, waiting for the final word from the team. Years of work, billions of dollars in funding, and countless hours of research had led to this moment, the first full-scale test of the Wormhole Exploration Project, WEP. "Everything's green on my end," said Zane Carter, the young engineer who had been essential in the final stages of the wormhole generator's construction. His voice had a confidence that belied his years. "We're ready when you are." Evelyn glanced around at her team. Captain Marcus Thorne, stoic and prepared for anything, nodded his silent approval from the corner of the room. Dr. Raj Patel, the brilliant but cautious quantum physicist, was already scanning the data, ensuring that every variable was accounted for. Lieutenant Amy Rivers tapped at her communication console, linking their systems to Earth Command for a live feed of the experiment. "Everyone set?" Evelyn asked, her voice calm but charged with anticipation. "Set," came the chorus of responses. "Let's open a door to the stars," she said softly, her fingers dancing over the controls. The wormhole generator roared to life, the air around them vibrating with the force of energy being drawn from the quantum reactor beneath the facility. On the screen, a shimmering tear appeared in the fabric of space, expanding slowly until it formed a stable, swirling vortex. The team watched in awe as the wormhole solidified, a tunnel of light and shadows leading to the unknown. "We're through," Raj confirmed, his eyes glued to the data, but the celebration was short-lived. A low, ominous hum began to emanate from the vortex, growing louder by the second. The lights in the control room flickered, and suddenly, without warning, the wormhole fluctuated violently. "Shut it down!" Marcus barked, instinct taking over as alarms blared. Evelyn frantically worked the controls, but it was too late. A sudden jolt knocked them all off their feet as the wormhole imploded in on itself, sucking the entire facility, and the team, into the void. When Evelyn opened her eyes, the control room was gone. The sterile, familiar environment had been replaced by something entirely alien. She was floating, weightless, in a vast expanse of nothingness. Around her, strange shapes flickered in and out of existence, and the space itself seemed to bend and twist in impossible ways. Her first instinct was to panic, but then she heard a voice. "Evelyn." "Marcus." His voice was strong, though tinged with confusion. "Can you hear me?" "I'm here," she called out, though her voice seemed to be swallowed by the emptiness around her. Slowly, her eyes adjusted, and she could make out the faint forms of her teammates, drifting nearby. "Where are we?" Zane's voice was shaky, the confidence from earlier gone. Raj's voice cut through the fog. "I don't know. This isn't any dimension we've ever theorized. The laws of physics aren't stable here." "Great," Amy muttered. "We're lost in a place that doesn't make sense." Evelyn's mind raced. The wormhole had malfunctioned, that much was clear. But instead of being destroyed or scattered across the universe, they had been sucked into this place. A dimension beyond their understanding. "Focus, everyone," she said, forcing herself to remain calm. "We need to assess the situation. Marcus, get everyone together. Raj, start analyzing the environment. We need to find out if there's a way back." As they gathered, the strangeness of their surroundings became more apparent. Time seemed to stretch and compress at random intervals. Objects appeared and disappeared in the periphery of their vision, and the very space they occupied seemed to pulse and breathe like a living thing. "This place is alive," Raj muttered, his eyes wide with wonder and fear. "Or at least, it's reacting to us." Evelyn tried to keep her mind grounded in logic. "Let's not jump to conclusions just yet. We need to find out if the wormhole left any trace we can follow back." Zane was already fiddling with his equipment, though it had clearly been affected by the transition. "Most of our tech's fried," he said, shaking his head. "But I might be able to rig something up to scan for residual wormhole energy." As the team worked, the dimension around them began to change. The strange shapes in the distance grew closer, more defined, until they could see that they weren't just shapes, they were beings. Shadowy figures, humanoid but featureless, drifted toward them, their forms shifting and morphing as they approached. "Are those people?" Amy asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't think so," Marcus replied, his hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. "But they're watching us." The figures didn't come any closer, content to observe from a distance. But their presence was unnerving, and the team felt the weight of their gazes. "Ignore them," Evelyn said, trying to stay focused. "We have to stay on task." But as the hours, or perhaps days, time had lost all meaning, passed, it became clear that this dimension wasn't just a passive environment. It was interacting with them, reacting to their thoughts and emotions. The space around them would shift and they spoke, and their equipment would malfunction in direct correlation with their moods. "It's like this place is a mirror," Raj said, his voice tinged with awe. "It's reflecting us back at ourselves." "That doesn't help us get out of here," Marcus grumbled. "No, but it might be the key to escaping," Evelyn said, a sudden idea forming in her mind. "If this place responds to our thoughts, maybe we can control it." "Control it?" Zane looked skeptical. "You mean, think our way out?" "More or less," Evelyn replied. "We need to focus on what we want, on home, on Earth. If we can stabilize our thoughts and project them onto this dimension, we might be able to create a new wormhole." "It's a long shot," Marcus said, frowning. "Do you have a better idea?" Amy shot back. Raj nodded slowly. "It makes sense. This dimension is fluid, malleable. If we can impose our reality onto it, we might be able to shape it into something we recognize." They didn't have much choice. With their supplies running low and no other options on the horizon, they began to work on Evelyn's plan. They each focused on a specific aspect of Earth's physics, gravity, time, space, and projected it outward, trying to force the chaotic environment into order. At first, nothing happened. The space around them continued to shift and warp, indifferent to their efforts. But slowly, as their concentration deepened, the dimension began to stabilize. The strange shapes faded, the shadowy figures retreated, and the oppressive sense of unreality lifted. "We're doing it," Zane whispered, barely daring to believe it. The air around them shimmered, and a familiar sight began to form, a wormhole, unstable but unmistakable. It flickered and wavered, but it was there, a path back to their universe. "Now or never," Marcus said, his voice tight with urgency. With one final push of concentration, the wormhole solidified. The team didn't hesitate. One by one, they leaped into the swirling vortex, their bodies pulled through the tunnel of light and shadows. The journey back was nothing like the smooth transitions they had imagined wormholes would be. The space around them twisted and distorted, colors and shapes blending together in a dizzying cacophony. But through it all, they held on to the image of Earth, to the familiar laws of their universe, when they finally emerged, it was with a jarring thud. The team collapsed onto the cold, hard ground, gasping for breath. "Is it over?" Amy asked, her voice weak. Evelyn blinked, trying to clear her vision. Around them, the world looked familiar. The sky was blue, the air crisp. But something was off. Subtle details, architecture, technology, seemed slightly advanced. And there was a strange hum in the air, like the entire planet was buzzing with energy. "This isn't our Earth," Raj said, his voice trembling with realization. "It's similar, but it's not home." The wormhole behind them flickered, then collapsed in on itself, sealing them in this new reality. Evelyn stood slowly, brushing the dust from her uniform. "We did it. We got out." "But we're not home," Zane said, his voice tinged with frustration. "No," Evelyn agreed. "But maybe this is where we're supposed to be." The team stood in silence, absorbing the weight of her words. They had survived the impossible, but their journey was far from over. In this new world, they would continue to explore, to push the boundaries of what was possible. "We've become dimensional explorers," Marcus said, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "And I think we're just getting started." As the team began to regroup and plan their next move, Evelyn couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. They had uncovered the deeper secrets of wormholes, and now, they were the universe's top explorers of the unknown. The team gathered their bearings as the reality of their new world set in. Everything about this alternate Earth felt slightly off. The air had a faint charge to it, a subtle reminder that they were not home. Evelyn could sense it in the way the buildings in the distance shimmered, how technology here seemed both familiar and alien. It was like looking through a distorted mirror, the reflections just slightly askew. Marcus scanned the horizon, his military instincts on high alert. "We need to find shelter, regroup, and assess our situation. We're exposed out here." Zane nodded, still dazed but already fiddling with his equipment. "I can try to salvage some of this tech. If we're lucky, I can repurpose it to figure out where, or rather, when, we are." Raj was more contemplative, his mind whirring through possibilities. "If this is an alternate dimension, we need to consider the implications. There could be multiple versions of us here, parallel lives, perhaps even a different version of this project. We might not be alone." "Great," Amy muttered. "So not only are we stuck in a place that isn't home, but we might also run into ourselves." "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," Evelyn said, her voice steadying the group. "First, we find shelter. Then, we figure out how to survive." They moved cautiously, their eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. The landscape, though reminiscent of Earth, had an eerie quality. The sky was slightly too blue, the air too clean, and the buildings in the distance gleamed with a futuristic sheen that was unfamiliar yet enticing. They followed Marcus, who led them toward the nearest city. As they approached, the streets bustled with life. People moved about their business, but the technology here was clearly more advanced than back home. Hovercrafts zipped above their heads, and holographic displays floated in midair, broadcasting news in a language that was both recognizable and strange. It was English, but some of the words had been altered, and the accents were unfamiliar. Evelyn stopped for a moment, taking it all in. "This place, it's a version of Earth where technology evolved faster. We must have crossed into a timeline where they made leaps we couldn't." Raj nodded, his eyes scanning the cityscape with fascination. "It's remarkable. If we're going to survive here, we need to understand the differences. We could be dealing with advanced AI, new forms of energy, who knows what else." As they made their way through the city, they garnered curious stares but no outright hostility. It seemed their uniforms and gear didn't look too out of place, though it was clear they were newcomers. "We need a base of operations," Marcus said, scanning the area for anything that might serve as temporary shelter. "Somewhere low profile." Zane pointed to a small, unassuming building nestled between two gleaming towers. "That looks like it could work. It's off the main street, and we can probably blend in." The group moved quickly, slipping into the building. Inside, it was empty, a derelict structure that seemed long abandoned. Dust covered the surfaces, and the windows were cracked, but it would serve their purposes. Once inside, Marcus assigned watch shifts while Zane began tinkering with his devices, trying to make sense of their situation. Evelyn and Raj sat down together, reviewing everything they'd experienced so far. "This wormhole technology," Raj said, his voice quiet but intense, "it's far more complex than we initially understood. We didn't just travel through space, we traversed dimensions. And now, we're here, in a version of Earth that's evolved differently." Evelyn nodded, her mind racing with the possibilities. "The question is, how do we use what we know to get back? Or, should we even try?" Raj glanced at her, eyebrows raised. "Are you suggesting we stay?" "I'm saying we need to consider all options," Evelyn replied. "We might be able to learn from this place, find new technologies, new ideas. Maybe going back isn't the only goal anymore." Marcus, who had been listening from the side, stepped forward. "We still have a mission. Our priority is to find a way home. But while we're here, we do what we do best, survive." For the next few days, the team hunkered down, gathering information on the new world. Amy ventured out cautiously, observing the city's inhabitants, their habits, and the local economy. Zane managed to patch into a few communication networks, gleaning bits of information about this alternate society. They were technologically advanced but peaceful, their government centered on scientific progress and exploration. It was, in many ways, the ideal version of Earth that humanity had always hoped for, but despite the peaceful exterior, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that something darker lurked beneath the surface. One evening, as they gathered around a holographic map Zane had cobbled together from intercepted signals, Raj spoke up. "I've been doing some digging. There's mention of something called the Nexus Project in their archives, some kind of interdimensional research facility located outside the city. It might be connected to the wormhole technology we encountered." Evelyn's eyes lit up. "If they're researching interdimensional travel, they might hold the key to getting us back home." "It's a risk," Marcus said, ever the pragmatist. "We don't know who runs it or what their intentions are." "True," Evelyn agreed. "But we can't sit here forever. If we're going to get answers, we need to start looking in the right places." The decision was made. The next morning, the team set out for the Nexus facility. They navigated through the outskirts of the city, avoiding any unnecessary attention. As they approached the sprawling complex, they saw it was heavily fortified, guarded by automated drones and advanced security systems. "We're not walking in the front door," Zane said, eyeing the drones. "I can hack into the system, create a diversion. But we'll have a small window to get inside." Marcus nodded. "Do it. Everyone, stay close and be ready for anything." Zane worked quickly, his fingers flying over his portable console. Within moments, the drones began to malfunction, veering off course and colliding with one another. It was just enough of a distraction for the team to slip through the perimeter and into the facility. Inside, the Nexus was a labyrinth of sterile hallways and sleek, futuristic labs. The deeper they went, the more advanced the technology became. They passed rooms filled with strange, pulsating devices, holographic displays showing interdimensional maps, and scientists working on experiments they could barely comprehend. "This place is incredible," Raj whispered, his eyes wide with wonder. "They're on the verge of breaking open the multiverse." Evelyn remained focused. "Let's find the central lab. If we're going to learn anything, it'll be there." As they reached the core of the facility, they found themselves standing before a massive, glowing gateway, an interdimensional portal, similar to the one they had traveled through but far more stable. A team of scientists was working on it, unaware of the intruders. "That's our way back," Evelyn said, her heart pounding in her chest. "We just need to figure out how to calibrate it to our dimension." But before they could make a move, a voice echoed through the room. "You're not supposed to be here." The team whirled around to find a man standing in the shadows, his face obscured by the dim light. "Who are you?" Marcus demanded. Stepping forward, the man stepped into the light, revealing an older, grizzled face. "I'm Dr. Samuel Hayes. I run the Nexus project. And I've been waiting for you." Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. "You knew we were coming?" Dr. Hayes smiled, a slow, knowing grin. "Not exactly. But I've been studying dimensional anomalies for years. When your wormhole experiment went wrong, it created ripples, disturbances we've been tracking ever since. I suspected someone would eventually come through. Can you help us get back?" Zane asked, stepping forward. Doctor. Hayes paused, his expression thoughtful. "I can. But it's not as simple as just opening a door. There are consequences to interdimensional travel. Changes, both subtle and profound." "What kind of changes?" Raj asked, his voice wary. Doctor. Hayes gestured to the portal. "Every time you cross between dimensions, you alter reality. You shift timelines, rewrite history. It's why your Earth and this one are so different. The more you travel, the greater the changes. Eventually, you might not recognize the world you return to." Evelyn's mind raced. "But we have to try." Dr. Hayes nodded slowly. "I understand. I'll help you calibrate the portal. But you must understand, when you step through, there's no guarantee you'll return to the world you left." The team exchanged glances. They had survived the impossible, but now they faced an even greater challenge, finding their way home in a multiverse of infinite possibilities. As Dr. Hayes worked on the portal, Evelyn felt a strange mix of hope and fear. They had come so far, but the road ahead was more uncertain than ever. Still, there was no turning back. The portal flared to life, casting a brilliant light across the room. "Ready?" Dr. Hayes asked. Evelyn took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Let's go home."